In the Uproar, Barbuta. I honestly have to commend Mossmouth for the placement of Barbuta here. It is the very first game in UFO 50, thereby making it the first game that most people are going to pick up and play, and it leaves an impression, that's for sure. In terms of the metafiction surrounding UFO 50, it makes sense that Barbuta would be the first game, and why it is the way it is. It was the very first game that was made by UFO Soft and made by a single guy in their office as basically a way to stave off boredom while doing his regular work as a software house. So metatextually, it makes perfect sense why the game would feel and play so rough. But taking it out of that context, as the first impression that someone is most likely to have with the collection, it can leave a bit of a sour taste. That starting trap that I showed off is kind of a misleading trick, as the game does employ similar cheap tactics on later screens, but it actually does so fairly sparingly. This isn't a game made to induce rage, it's a game that expects you to poke and prod at it in all the different ways you can think of. You aren't even given any sort of indication as to what any of the items you find can do, or if they're even necessary. You either figure it out by accident, like standing underneath slime drops while holding an umbrella, or you manage to intuit the answer based on context clues, like how after you receive the push pin, you might remember that you saw a bunch of pathways blocked by bubbles that you couldn't pop with your sword for some reason. Guess what you can do now that you have the pin? And that's this game in a nutshell. You could almost think of it as a very early example of a search action game. The world around you doesn't change at all from playthrough to playthrough, and all the items are always in the same place each time. So if you're thorough, it's only a matter of time before you manage to find your way through the game, provided that you know what to look for. There are certain places where it's pretty obvious that you can do something, or that something will happen, like cracked walls that you can destroy with your sword. But this just trains you to look for more obvious tells in the environment, but some tells are subtler than others. Like in this room, if you want to grab the umbrella item without having to spend some of your hard-found treasure on it, you can get it for free, but only if you realize that the two bricks over here are a slightly different hue than the rest of the surrounding wall, marking them as transparent. That's just the sort of game that Barbuta is, and I kind of love it for that. I'm under no delusion that it's going to be to everyone's taste, but the quiet, contemplative nature of the game and its philosophy of pushing the player to just try weird or stupid ideas just to see if it works is kind of endearing. You only start the game with 6 lives, and after that you lose all progress and items and start back at the beginning with nothing but the knowledge you gained beforehand. But with that knowledge, and armed with a better strategy and knowledge of the layout of the castle, you can try again and hopefully make some more headway towards whatever your ultimate goal is. It's a very zen experience, helped with the game's very minimal sound design, a rarity for most of the other games in this collection, with the most prominent sound being the gentle hum that you get every time you transition from one screen to the other, and the gentle tink whenever you land from a jump or a fall. And of course, because of the game's open-ended nature, if you know how to get to certain places or items, you don't have to go through everything you went through last time, meaning that the game not only gets easier the more you play it, but also gets quicker too. There's a reason why the game was beaten by speedrunners in under 5 minutes after all. It's not the first game I'd go back to, it's not even nearly one of my favorites, but as both a metafictional vehicle and as a game that mimics the feeling of a more limited adventure game, I think it does really well without being so clunky and frustrating that I never want to come back to it again. But there's just a lot of other games that I would rather be playing instead.